Just get in line may be the most misleading sentence in the immigration debate.
Misleading or incomplete?
Imagine a queue with no public entrance. Some people may join through an employer, some through a close relative. Some may seek protection because they are fleeing persecution. For many others, no category is available. Then we accuse them of refusing to wait their turn.
And now the part your metaphor leaves out. Even a clearly marked queue has a maximum speed. If 10 million people want the same door and the country can process 1 million, someone still has to set priorities.
Good. So this will not be kind people want open borders and cruel people want control.
A relief. The internet already has that program fully staffed.
First, immigrant is not one legal category. A foreign student, a sponsored worker, a refugee, an asylum applicant, a person who overstayed a visa, and someone who crossed a border without permission do not have the same legal position. Some of those categories can also overlap.
Some are not in a queue at all. The United States has separate routes for family, employment, refugees, asylum, and a diversity lottery. Each has different rules and limits.
That is the part hidden by "come legally." For many people, there is no form they can complete simply for being hardworking and wanting a better life.
The Cato Institute gave one striking example. In the years it examined, more than 20 million people applied for roughly 50,000 diversity visas. That is not a queue in the ordinary sense. It is a raffle with paperwork.
A dry joke, but yes.
Still, we need precision. There is no line for many people does not mean every unauthorized immigrant had no lawful option. Some people overstay visas. Some claims fail. Different cases should lead to different conclusions.
I take your point. If we turn every migrant into one sympathetic story, we make the same mistake as people who turn every migrant into one threatening story.
That phrase, "I take your point," is doing useful work. You are conceding part of my argument without abandoning yours.
Please do not turn my concession into an English lesson this early.
Occupational hazard.
My own visa experience was minor, but it changed how I hear bureaucratic language. My UK Global Talent application was questioned because my purpose statement was insufficiently specific. I spent 3 weeks rewriting one paragraph. My life had not changed. My ability to describe it in the approved language had.
My UK working holiday visa was initially refused because my bank documents supposedly showed insufficient funds. I had $4,000. I appealed, sent more evidence, and the decision changed.
You had English, records, time, and a safe place to wait.
I did. I would never compare that inconvenience with an asylum case, but it taught me that an appeal is not decorative. It is how a system admits an official may be wrong.
That is due process in ordinary language. The government explains its decision, considers evidence, and gives you a meaningful chance to challenge a mistake.
The difficult word is meaningful. In 2023, non-detained immigration cases that reached an initial decision had taken a median of 846 days.
More than 2 years.
And millions of cases were pending. A slow system leaves people building lives inside uncertainty, but a rushed system can make serious mistakes.
So slow can be unjust, and fast can be unjust.
And the delay is not empty time. A person may start a job, find a partner, or watch a child begin school while the file sits in a queue. Then a decision arrives years later and treats that entire period as if nothing happened.
That is what policy language can hide. Case pending sounds static. A life is not static.
Irritating for anyone hoping to solve government with a stopwatch.
But the standard is simple enough to say, timely enough to be real, careful enough to be fair.
This is where the current American story becomes uncomfortable. Since Donald Trump returned to office in 2025, immigration enforcement has expanded. More raids, faster removals, more detention, and more agencies involved.
The federal government committed roughly $170 billion over 4 years to immigration enforcement and border security. Yet the number of immigration judges was capped even while the court backlog remained enormous.
That is hard to defend. If you spend heavily to place more people into proceedings without enough capacity to decide their cases, you make the bottleneck worse.
There is another contradiction. In February 2026, President Trump said the United States would continue allowing people to come legally. But his administration had also restricted visas, ended some humanitarian programs, paused parts of legal processing, and sharply reduced normal refugee admissions.
Come legally sounds different when the legal entrances are narrowing.
It does.
But let me make the strongest enforcement argument. A legal system that never enforces a final refusal also loses credibility. If every no becomes an indefinite not yet, people stop believing that the rules mean anything.
And let me make the strongest civil liberties argument. When officials are under pressure to increase arrests, individual distinctions can disappear. A family, a lawful resident, or someone with a valid claim can be caught in machinery designed for speed.
Public opinion is more complicated than either slogan. A 2025 Pew survey found that about a third of Americans wanted all immigrants living in the country illegally deported. About half wanted some deported. A much smaller group wanted none deported.
So most people did not choose either extreme.
They made distinctions. Among people who supported some deportations, support was overwhelming for removing violent offenders, but far lower for people with jobs, parents of American children, people brought to the country as children, or spouses of citizens.
That sounds more like prioritization than mass removal.
It also means reformers cannot dismiss enforcement as a fringe demand. People want rules. They just disagree about how broad and harsh those rules should be.
I concede that. My concern is whether a mass operation can preserve the distinctions the public says it wants.
And enforcement is only half the argument.
The economic case for immigration is substantial. Immigrants work across healthcare, technology, construction, agriculture, care work, and small business.
The Congressional Budget Office projected that the recent immigration surge would expand the economy and reduce federal deficits over a decade.
Larger workforce, more production, more tax revenue.
Also more demand for homes, schools, transport, and local services. A national budget can improve, while a particular rental market or school district feels real pressure.
That is fair. An aggregate benefit does not guarantee local readiness.
Or equal benefit. The Economic Policy Institute argues that immigration is broadly positive for growth, but workers with precarious status are easier for employers to exploit.
If your right to remain depends on one employer, refusing unpaid hours becomes dangerous.
And that can weaken conditions for the worker beside you. I would rather punish an employer stealing wages than blame the worker with the least power.
We agree there. Housing is harder.
Because you think every housing shortage is a planning failure.
Not every shortage. But American home prices surged in 2020 and 2021, while immigration had fallen. Immigration can add demand, but it did not create decades of underbuilding.
I accept not alone. I reject, therefore, arrivals never need to slow. Homes take years to build. Pressure arrives now.
Pressure is real. Treating capacity as permanently fixed is a political choice. My background is in urban planning, and capacity is never one national tank marked full or empty. One city blocks apartments near transport. Another has empty buildings but too few jobs. A third needs nurses but has nowhere affordable for them to live.
Which is a good argument for regional planning. It is not proof that every place can absorb every increase.
I did not say it was. I am saying the country is full often hides several smaller failures that require different solutions.
Temporarily fixed, Aisha. A family priced out today cannot sleep inside a planning reform scheduled for 2032.
Canada tested that argument in real time.
And it is the strongest example from my side. International student numbers rose quickly while housing tightened. Some colleges became dependent on overseas tuition, and some students did not receive the education or support they had been promised.
That was regulatory failure. The students paid for an opportunity and arrived inside a business model they did not design.
Both can be true. Canada then capped study permits. The government said incoming international student numbers fell and pressure eased in some rental markets.
Government claims need independent testing, but I will give you the central point. Volume can affect short-term pressure.
Thank you. I may frame the audio.
Do not become emotional.
Britain reveals the other side. The migration figure dominating debate in 2023 was 745,000 for the previous year. At the same time, Britain had recruited more overseas workers for healthcare and social care.
It wanted the workers and resented the migration number created by recruiting them.
A care worker can staff a clinic and need a flat at the same time.
I am not disputing the flat. I am disputing the habit of counting it and forgetting the clinic shift.
Europe adds a third version. After years of pressure on countries such as Greece and Italy, the European Union's new migration pact began applying in June 2026. It promises faster decisions and more shared responsibility between countries.
And critics warn that faster border procedures, detention, and restricted appeals may weaken individual review. But I want to concede something before you make me. Delay is not compassion. Leaving someone in a camp or legal limbo for years is not humane simply because deportation has not happened.
Thank you for saving us both time.
My question is, what gets removed in the name of speed? Repeated paperwork? Good. A meaningful appeal? Much more dangerous.
So even there, the argument is not fast versus slow. It is which steps protect accuracy and which steps merely protect bureaucracy.
That may be the whole Western contradiction. We want a system to move quickly, but we rarely agree on what it must not run over.
Let me force the question. Housing is scarce, courts are years behind, public support is falling. Do you reduce arrivals, yes or no?
Through some routes, in some places, for a defined period, possibly, yes.
That is the most carefully padded yes I have ever heard.
Because the total hides different decisions. Reducing student permits is not the same as refusing refugees. Pausing a work route is not the same as rushing an asylum removal.
Fine, separate the categories. You may still need lower totals.
And after lowering them, you may discover rents remain high because the housing system escaped reform.
That does not answer the immediate constraint.
It answers the political incentive. Limits are quick to announce. Courts, labor enforcement, and housing construction are slow. My fear is that the temporary measure replaces the repair.
My fear is the reverse. Promising long-term reform becomes an excuse to ignore present limits. If institutions cannot absorb the pressure now, pretending otherwise hands the issue to people offering cruelty as competence.
I take that seriously, but I would reframe the issue slightly. The real question is not whether a country controls immigration. Every country does. The question is, what kind of control can earn legitimacy?
Control authorized by law and capable of producing an outcome.
Plus, lawful routes people can realistically use, decisions within the human timescale, and due process when the government may be wrong.
Plus, final decisions that can be enforced. Appeal cannot become another word for endless delay.
Agreed, but speed cannot become another word for justice.
Then credible control needs accessible rules, timely decisions, prioritization, and enforcement.
And correction. A credible government must be able to admit and fix a mistake.
Fair. That changes my position more than I expected. I began with legal access on one side and enforcement on the other. But if courts remain a bottleneck, more arrests may not create control. They may create a larger waiting room with locked doors.
And you have changed mine. I still think capacity is often used as an alibi for political neglect. But calling it political does not make it imaginary. A hospital cannot staff tonight's shift with a 10-year economic forecast. Pace matters.
We still disagree about temporary reductions.
We do. You see them as a tool that may restore credibility. I see a tool governments may use to avoid earning credibility.
So what does this reveal about Western culture? Wealthy democracies often want migration in its most convenient form. The surgeon without credential delays, the care worker without a housing need, the student's tuition without responsibility for the college.
They welcome mobility as an economic benefit, then rediscover borders when mobility creates social obligations.
But governments also owe current residents functioning services and rules they can trust. Saying that is not automatically anti-immigrant.
And insisting on due process is not automatically anti-enforcement. That is the false binary.
For advanced English learners, a useful move is, I would reframe the issue slightly. Then challenge the assumption inside the question. Not control or compassion, but what kind of control is effective and legitimate?
Active concession makes that reframe stronger. I take your point about immediate pressure, but temporary limits cannot replace long-term capacity. You acknowledge the strongest part of the other view before explaining why your concern remains.
So when someone says, just get in line, ask 4 questions. Where is the entrance? Does the line move? Are different cases being distinguished? And what happens when the person guarding it is wrong?
Because a queue without an entrance or movement is not fair, and neither is a system without distinctions or appeal.
That is symbolic control.
Or a wall wearing the language of fairness.
For the reframe, the concession, and 3 more practical moves for difficult IELTS. Part 3 questions, download the free top-tier English Starter Pack below.